Hello, friends. Again, we are back with What's Next, Friend? So, I'm gonna pick up a little bit and kind of talk about my second base. I talked about how I joined basic training, my first assignment, which was at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. Now we're gonna talk about where my life changed for the better. Change for good. Anyway, so I went to Yokota after Dover, and Yokota is in Japan. The town is Fusa, Japan. So I went there, and my first impression when I got there was so this tells you how not military I was. Anyway, so at Dover, we flew C5s. Cargo planes, right? The big daddies. And then we also had like some C-17s on the base. And then, I don't think it's even I don't even think it's in commission anymore. What was it? I can't remember. It was another cargo plane that was there, essentially, right? Then I get to Yokota, and my first impression was, oh my gosh, we have planes with propellers still? Like, I thought everything had a jet engine. And it's like, no, these are C-130s, and they are a big part of our fleet as the United States Air Force, and I had no idea. So yeah, that tells you how much I knew about the Air Force. But I get there and I was like, oh, all these planes with propellers. But they also flew out of Yokota at the time, so they had C-130s. They had C-9s, which I think were the medevac planes, and then they also had the Lear jets. I don't remember. C-10s. I don't know. They had the Lear jets that flew out of there too. So those were like the three big airframes that were there. So that was my first impression of Yokota. I was so excited to be there. That's where I met. That's where I got my first roommate from living in the dorms. Oh, flashing. That's where I got my first roommate. Tanikia. She and I lived together before my whole life changed, and I got married on Yokota Air Force Base. I met my now ex-husband in the dorm. Actually, we met in the dorm room. We were both smoking Newports because we were cool kids, and I met him. He lived like 2 doors down from me, come to find out. And we wound up getting married and having my sole purpose for doing all these things that led me to stay into the military. My daughter was born there in Yokota. And when she was born, when she got older, like when she could talk and everything, and she was, we're telling her story, and she's like, oh, so I was born in Japan, so I'm Japanese. And we're like, not really, sweetie. That was tumultuous, the process of having her. It was interesting because I went into labor early, and they didn't have facilities on base to kind of take care of a preemie or an early birth. So she was born in June, and I think I went into early labor in April. And so they rushed me to a Japanese hospital that could handle, because normally they would send someone they would medevac you to Hawaii. That's the closest base. I think it was Tripler was the closest base where they would send like preemies or babies that were coming early. But she was coming so quickly, they didn't have time to medevac me. So they just drove me from the hospital on base to the hospital downtown to in Japan, in Fusa. So I was in a Japanese hospital for like 7 days or so. It was a week. And David, her dad, followed the ambulance from the base to the hospital, and he had to go through all these things, these tricks and whatever. And it was in the middle of the night, of course. And subsequently, he was trying to get to see me every day just because I was in a Japanese hospital, didn't want to speak the language. Well, did not speak the language at all. But it was really interesting to be there because they had, when I was in the room, because they didn't know if she was going to come or not, they had given me stuff to stop the labor. So they were trying to actively stop it so she could, stay in longer. And so I was in a birthing room or suite, and I just remember there was like three or four folks who had given birth while I was in there, and I didn't hear them scream. I didn't hear them groan. All I heard was a baby cry. Like there would be a baby cry, and then there would be a baby cry. I'm like, how are these women doing this without any indication or verbal indication of pain? But anyway, that's what stuck out there. I also met Yuki, a Japanese friend of mine who was really, really sweet. She actually came to visit me when I left Japan to go to my third base. What else? I know I said this was a big base because it changed my life, but it really did. And there's so many things that happened. Did I stick to my notes? I did not take detailed notes for this video. I apologize up front. So this is going to be free flowing, much like most of them. So we'll get used to it. Okay, I get to Yokota. My roommate is Tanikia. She's dope. One thing about Yokota, because I think I might have shared this about Dover, is that I had like other jobs. Me and David, my ex-husband, we both had multiple jobs just to take care of like childcare because it was not cheap. We were both airmen. I think I joined before him. I think I became a senior airman before he did, which is an E4. So when we got married, I think we were both E3s, maybe A1Cs. So our wedding, we went through this premarital counseling with a pastor. We did all these things. We set our wedding date. We invited everybody. Then boom, on the day of our wedding, there was an exercise. And the pastor just did not show up. It was me and him and our friends in the church waiting to have the ceremony. Now we had already went to the Justice of the Peace or the courthouse in Japan to get it legally done. And we were having this ceremony, under God. And the pastor, I think he might have shown up 2 or 3 hours late, but it was the middle of an exercise. We were there, our friends were there, and we wound up just taking photos at the altar with no pastor because the pastor didn't show up. So anyway, so the pastor didn't show up. And we took photos, but we were already married, so I guess it was fine. Well, it was fine. And we went on our honeymoon. Our honeymoon was in Tokyo Disney. So we went to Tokyo Disney for, I think, 2 or 3 days. We had a honeymoon suite. It was a really big deal for us because it was kind of like our first big vacation as grown-ups. At least it was for me. I didn't ask him. For me, it was a big deal. It was my first vacation as a grown-up that I paid for. And so we did Tokyo Disney for our honeymoon, and then we came back. We got our house off base. We lived in a house in downtown Fusa, and it had tatami mats, which was Japanese flooring at the time. Very, very nice. But we also had a waterbed. Yes, because it was the 90s. We had a waterbed, which was very interesting because, when we were living off base, Jasmyn was growing in my tummy. And if you know anything about a waterbed and being pregnant, getting in and out of a waterbed was challenging. But it was we could heat it. So when it was cold, it really gets cold in Japan. When it got cold at night, it was so cozy because we could heat up the waterbed. It was just fabulous. But I loved our little house. It was really, really cute. We had 2 bedrooms. The main bedroom, of course, we had the waterbed and all our little stuff. And then we made up Jasmyn's room, preparing for her to get ready. And it was classic Pooh was her theme, which was really, really nice. It had the photos. I still have photos, obviously, of that time, but they had the wood paneling, which made it feel very American. But then the floors were tatami mats, which was just an interesting combination of it all. But anyway, the times we had on that waterbed, it was funny. But we made the most of it, and every single night on that waterbed, I'll never forget, David would like talk to my belly and talk to Jasmyn while she was in utero, which was interesting because when she was born, I think her first month or so, she didn't want anything to do with me. She would come to me to eat, because I breastfed for like 2 weeks, because she went to her 2-week appointment and the doctor was like, she's healthy, she's growing, everything's good. I was like, can I stop breastfeeding? And he said, I said, I need to stop breastfeeding. And so I stopped breastfeeding after 2 weeks, after she had her 2-week appointment. But yeah, she would come to me to eat, and then that was it. She just loved her daddy. She was a daddy's girl. But then after that first month or so, then we was locked in. My favorite person. But so yeah, we were off base, and then we moved on base they had tower apartments, and we had a place on the first floor in the tower that we lived in, which was great, because we didn't have to go up and down, elevator, escalator, whatever, elevator. But what was interesting about the tower that we lived in is that there was a video store inside the tower. I mentioned that because when I say we had multiple jobs, so David worked at the video store for AAFES. I was an aerobics instructor for on base, the gym on base, as well as a gym off base in Japan. I was also a karaoke DJ for AAFES. I worked at the club on karaoke nights. And I think there was something else that David did. I think David did work at the auto hobby shop too. So we were both active duty, right? Doing our 9 to 5. And then we both had additional jobs to supplement our income to pay for daycare, because we didn't necessarily want Jasmyn. It was hard when Jasmyn first went to daycare. So we gave birth, I had my maternity leave, which was only, was it 6 weeks, I think? Yeah, it was only 6 weeks. And so I added 2 more weeks. So it would be like 2 months. And then I added 2 more weeks of extra normal leave. So it would wind up to be 2 months. And then I put her in the child development center, which was nice because the building was right behind my office where I went to work every day. So I would go for feedings and I would see her, and she just kept getting sick there. And I was like, I don't want her in here. So then I took more leave. I took 2 more weeks off to bring her out of that environment and find a home daycare provider for her, which was really important. And the best home daycare providers were not inexpensive. And so I spent those 2 weeks trying to find something. And at that point, they didn't have like the paternity leave. So David he didn't get any leave. So he had to take leave at the beginning. And so during this end point time, it was just me that was on leave, that was off work trying to work this out. So we thought we had found someone. We thought it was great. But I remember dropping her off when I had to go back to work. We did the interview, we met with her, and we thought everything was good. I go to drop Jasmyn off, and this girl had toenails like on a table or something. All I remember is toenails, and I just started crying. I said, David, I cannot leave her here. This place is gross. So then David took leave for a week or two until we found the most wonderful provider. And I see her face. Oh my God, why can't I think of her name? She was so awesome. But she treated Jasmyn like she was a part of her family. Like, they loved Jasmyn. She was not cheap. I think she was like $250 every 2 weeks. which is a lot of money for us at the time, 2 airmen at the time. I think I was a senior airman by then. I don't know if David had made it yet. David hadn't put on senior airman yet. So I mean, I was at E4, he was E3. I don't know when he put on E4. But that was a lot of money. And so we were like, all right, we're gonna do what we gotta do. So he took jobs, I took jobs, we did everything we had to do to make sure we could pay for her to go to this provider, because Miss Mary Lou, that was her name, Miss Mary Lou Gonzalez, and she loved Jasmyn. They would go on vacation, family vacations, and she would bring Jasmyn back stuff. When we would come to pick up Jasmyn from daycare, she'd be like, "Can Jasmyn stay for dinner?" I'm like, she's a baby. She's like, okay, if you guys want to keep her for dinner. And her little son just loved Jasmyn. They really, really, really loved her, and they were teaching her Spanish because they were Hispanic. And she she would say words that we didn't know, but she was so earnest in those words, and I can't remember if one of them was bopa, something for drink or something. I can't remember what the word was now. And I did take 4 years of Spanish in school. Don't judge me. I can't remember what it was. But she would say these words. And I'd be like, David, what is she talking about? And then we would ask Miss Mary Lou, and she'd be like, oh, that's what she's mean. She's talking about this. She's talking about that. And I'm like, oh, so you're teaching her Spanish. Okay. Wonderful. And she would take Jasmyn to the park. And every time she would hang out with Jazz more so than the other kids. And everywhere she would go, people would think that Jasmyn was her daughter. And she said, every time we go to the park, the Japanese people love her. They want to take photos with her. They just want to pinch her little cheeks. I mean, Jasmyn was sweet. I mean, I am obviously biased, but my baby still is a beautiful, beautiful soul. But when she was a little bitty baby, she was a chocolate drop. Just so cute. People asked, when we finally got back to the States, and people would ask if she was the Baby Gap baby, because there was this Baby Gap ad going on at the time with this little bitty chocolate girl with these 2 afro puffs, and we always had Jasmyn's hair in 2 puffs, and everywhere we get, people would ask if she was the Baby Gap baby, and I'd be like, no, and she always says, Mama, you should have got me into modeling. I'm like, yeah, if I wasn't working 5 jobs, perhaps I could have, but anyway, I completely got off topic. How my life changed. Yokota, got married, had my sugar bear, worked multiple jobs, lived on the economy, lived on base, also, I was in Yokota Players. It's a theater troupe. Absolutely love the Yokota Players. I did like 2 or 3 shows with them. And one of my favorite baby pictures of Jasmyn, I was in a rehearsal, and I think I was in costume. I cannot remember the character I was playing, but I had like 2 big ponytails, and I was in some overalls, and I have Jasmyn like on my hip. And I don't remember who took the photo, but it's like a black and white photo. That is one of my favorite photos of her, because I'm actually like in dress rehearsal. I think was it tech dress? I don't know. I was in costume. She was on my hip, and I was like, script in hand, Jasmyn on hip, on the stage. It was just one of my favorite photos of her. But yeah, those are the big things that I remember about Yokota. I experienced my first hurricane evacuation with airplanes when I first got there. What else? I started going to school, started earning my degree, going to classes. I did a lot of classes while I was pregnant with Jasmyn. It's funny, there was a speech class that I did, and everyone hated the teacher because he was really, really mean. And I would be in class, and Jasmyn would just be moving all around. I felt like she knew that he was terrible. He was a mean dude, but she didn't like him. But did that. I made a student film that was awful called Black Butterfly, a part of, what class was that? I don't know. I had a class where I had to make a student film. It wasn't a film class. It was something, but it was a terrible film. What else? Love Japanese food. That's where I really started sushi and Asian food. Delicious. But that's where everything changed for me in terms of my career and my life and the things that were important to me. Because I talked about theater and joining the trying to get in Tops and Blue, and I was really focused in the arts and like this is what I want to do and blah blah blah. Then once I got to second base, still interested in theater, love the creative process and doing that, auditioning, learning lines, and performing. Having Jasmyn be a part of that was amazing too. But it kind of, my focus, and the Peace Corps. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I was like, I want to join the Peace Corps. I want to go and do something for underserved, underprivileged people somewhere else where I can also travel and all that kind of stuff. So I had all these passions. But then when I got to Yokota and had my daughter, all of my passion kind of funneled into her well-being and myself and like the marriage, like how what I need to do and how do I need to live my life so that it sets this human up to be her best self. So the relationship with her dad, like I know who my father is and never had a relationship with him, never had a father figure, don't know what it's like to be someone's like baby girl in that sense. So I never had a relationship with a father figure or my father. So for me, it was extremely important that we have that foundation, that Jasmyn knows her dad and she loves her dad. And our marriage was really, we did love each other. Like it was, I loved the man, had his baby, but it, for me, it was so much more than just that. She was a large part of why I wanted to make sure that stuff was solid and good. So yeah, that's where my life changed. That's where the universe introduced me to my Jasmyn Sierra bar. The blessing, the biggest blessing ever. The blessing of my life, actually. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I say that being a mother is the most important job I have ever had. And I don't know if a job is the right thing to call it. Maybe the most important calling or the most important thing or pursuit that I've ever done in my life is parenthood and being her mother. So yeah, that's Yokota. If I think of something else, I'll say it in the next video. But for right now, that's what it is. Until next time, peoples. Bye.